Okay, welcome to the final bit of this exercise. And this is going to be covering how we actually can animate a character. So you're going to see in the layers there is White Mage rig, bones, and controls. So if I turn each of these off individually, let's just start with the White Mage. This is the model. So this is the actual polygons that are being made up of this. Now, if this doesn't load, let's say maybe your model is just showing up like this. That's not good, right? So what we need to do is first make sure that shading has hardware texturing checked on, and it is, so that's not the issue. So the other thing we have to check here is that we have our material loaded. So the material is called White Mage New Rig Lambert 6. And you'll notice there's this little button. So if we double click on this, make sure it shows up over here, open that, you'll see White Mage JPG. If we hit the folder, we should be able to link it to this file right here. And that is in the zip I've included. So you should be able to find that, link that in, hit open, and now that should be on the model. It already was, so you shouldn't have to reapply it. So this is what we're looking at. That's the model. Let's turn that one off. Let's look at a couple other things here. So here's the bones. The bones are what actually makes this character move around. That's what these are here. The controls are the controls that move the bones, so the animator doesn't have to move every single bone independently, but just move like a cube right here, which is the right arm, move that around, instead of having to worry about moving each piece at a time. So let's see, if I turn on all three of these layers, and maybe I have that one selected, I can actually start to move her around. So that is her arm control. And this is like a low poly PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 game. You'll notice it looks not so great right now because it's using the lighting in the scene. But if we actually turn lighting off, like use flat lighting, it looks a lot better like this because it was actually meant to not use lighting for the engine that I had in mind. So this is on a Nintendo 3DS. You would not likely have real-time lighting, so it would be all baked into the character like this, where all lighting is kind of faked. So if I have this one selected right here, this is the center of gravity control, and if I actually move that up and down, that's actually controlling the entire character except for the arms. That allows for me to have things like jumps, or me to be able to have her sway back and forth. Basically, it's controlling her hips. I also have other controls like her feet control, her knee controls, elbow controls, and I can also do some independent controls. So you'll see this one stick right here, that's the bone. I can also control just a little bit of the bottom of her dress, so I can easily fix things in case if maybe a leg is popping through one section. So just a quick fix that that bone allows for us to do. Now I can also show the joints through this mesh by going to shading and X-ray joints. So if I do that, now all the bones are there, and I can actually individually rotate those things. You notice there's no head control. Well, if I click this button, or this bone right here, that's the head, I can actually rotate that from there. So how do we actually animate this character? Well, the main thing to be aware of is this timeline right here. This timeline is representing all the frames that we can work with right here. Now we can change that, but for this, let's not do anything too crazy. Maybe we're only going to go to 60 seconds here. So maybe she's going to start in a T-pose, or maybe she'll start in one pose and then do something else. So I need to actually lay down some keyframes to make that happen. To do that, what we need to do is have something selected like this arm, and we're going to hit the S key. And watch what happens over here and over here. With that S key, all of a sudden this all lights up red. And what that means is we have just laid down a key. So I'm actually going to move this down and over. So maybe more like that. Rotating the arm down. And then over some more, and now I'm going to hit S again. So now that arm is down here. I'm going to move maybe to frame 30, and then move that arm up in the air. Push that back a little bit. Now this is a very limited rig. It's a low poly game rig, so there's not too much stuff. We can't make her blink or anything like that, but it's a great way to learn how animating with bones works. So I'm going to again hit the S key, and now watch what happens if I grab left mouse button, drag this here. That's basically allowing me to scrub through my timeline. So I'm going to scrub backwards. So from 1 to 30, now her hand is actually going up in the air. I can also grab her center of gravity control, maybe move that down, hit S, and at frame 30, maybe move that up a little bit. Now this by no means is an actual real animation, but I'm just showing you how we can get that to go. And this is something I want you to experiment with. What can you do as a little short action that has some sort of fluid movement? So maybe she's going to wave, or maybe she's going to just start with her hands on her hips at frame 1, and at frame 30, I don't know, what is it, dabbing, what those kids do nowadays. Not even these days, it's like 2017, right? I'm old. So maybe she's all of a sudden doing that, and her head from frame 1 starts like that, and at frame 30 she's doing that. So have fun with this, experiment with this, see how the keyframes lay out. One last thing I forgot to tell you about is this one right here. And this is our global control. Maybe we didn't want her to be here in the scene when we started. We can grab this control and move her wherever you want. It's a very common thing to have people think you're going to grab the actual object to move that around. That doesn't work so well. So she's now over here, but the bones are over there, and then things start to break. So that global control is what we would use to be able to either move her or scale her up or down on that. So have fun with this animation. You could do anything you want, but what I want to see is some sort of action using multiple body parts where she goes from one pose to another pose.